Hey everybody, how's it going? alecandstuff here, and welcome to day 3 of Spooky Week. This whole entire week is going to be full of Halloween-themed content in the form of streams and videos to help get us into the spirit of the holiday. And for today's video, we're talking all about The Legend of Zelda. More specifically, we're going to be going over a lot of the creepy or spooky moments throughout the series' history, which might sound a little odd coming from a company like Nintendo, but as you'll find out here soon, Zelda has had its fair share of moments that used to scare me as a kid, and some that still do, even to this day. I won't be doing this alone, though. To help me put together this list, I called upon some of my friends, aka the biggest Zelda fans that I know, and those are my friends, NintendoFanGirl, as well as Amanda Van Heil and Alex Rosenberg, both from Zelda Universe. Before we get started with this list, I will give one small disclaimer though, that being that these are all going to be from or related to official Zelda games, so there will be no unofficial media or creepypastas here, which means no Ben drowned. Sorry, Ben. Anyway, with all of that said and without further ado, let's get on to the list, starting with number 5. You ever get that feeling late at night when you come out of your room to head to the kitchen to go grab a snack and you just feel like something is watching you? Then, as a result, you run back into your room and instead of getting that snack, you're stuck with this crippling fear that if you go back out there, you'll be snatched up by whatever monstrosity your imagination convinces you is out there? No? Just me? Okay, so Wall Masters. My first run-in with these things was from Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64, and I just remember playing through and feeling so creeped out by their appearance. They don't make any noise, really, and the only way to know if you're about to be attacked by one is that awful falling sound that accompanies a large, growing shadow as it drops on you from the ceiling. Just, ew! Not to mention having the Shadow Temple as these things as dwelling grounds, and you've got a recipe for childhood trauma.
Yeah, trauma seems like a very accurate description of what the Wall Masters are. I remember my first time playing through Forest Temple playing Ocarina, and when the Wall Masters came down, I was very unprepared and freaked out pretty badly, and it took me a long time for me to actually get used to them.
In my opinion, Wall Masters are by and far the scariest among the recurring Zelda enemies. Even in games like Wind Waker, where they're a little more cartoony, I guess you'd say, the mechanics alone make this enemy just horrifying. And then in games like Ocarina and Majora's Mask, where they literally look like a dismembered zombie hand. No thank you. No thank you. Zelda games have their fair share of scary enemies, but for our 4th scariest pick, we're moving from enemies to an entire realm. Skyward Sword's Silent Realm specifically. In Skyward Sword, Link encounters the Silent Realm 4 times, and it's scary every single time. The realm itself is creepy. Link is plopped into familiar territory, but the worlds are completely devoid of life. No Skyloft friends, no cute Kikwis, just a new hazy aura, and mysterious music that might actually sound serene if it weren't for the nightmare awaiting Link. You're given no sword, no shield, which if you ask me is already a recipe for terror, but then you're also tasked with collecting the sacred tears. But what really makes this horrifying are the Guardians and their Watchers. From the moment Link leaves his little safe circle, he's being pursued, and at a decent pace, by these massive sword-wielding metal golems. The music also changes from a really nice, serene little tune to the fast-paced beat of metal clanging. Each time he collects a tear, there's a very brief reprieve in which Link can safely traverse the Silent Realm. But since Link needs to work around these horrifying Watchers, which exist purely to catch you and tattletale on Link, as well as the fact that the environment has been changed, so for example, you can't touch water at all. It will alert the Guardians to your presence. All of those little reprieves are super short-lived all the time, making it just all the more stressful. And by the way, when the Guardians catch Link, that's it. Link can't defend himself. He has no sword. He has no shield. So at the end of the day, the Silent Realm and its horrifying Guardians are likely to draw very real tears for me in my pursuit of the sacred tears.
I totally agree, Sam. I think these levels are scarier than the previous Wall Masters in a different way. That being the crippling anxiety you get from seeing all of these giant guardians asleep, just waiting to awaken from their slumber and charge at you with relentless force. Seriously, these things have really got it out for our boy Link here.
I feel like the Silent Realm is one of the biggest examples of mood whiplash in pretty much any Zelda game ever, because those sections are so chill until they're all of a sudden very not. And when that happens, the turn is so severe that it just does nothing but give you absolute panic. Full-on panic the entire time. And now we can play it in HD. Thank you, Nintendo. I don't know why you do this to us. I think it's safe to say that Twilight Princess is one of the more darker Zelda games in the franchise. It's always had an edginess that many of the other games just didn't have. But there's one specific point in the game where things go completely off the rails. After you gather all the Tears of Light in the Lanayru province, you speak with the snake spirit Lanayru, who tells you that there's a part of the Fused Shadow in the Lakebed Temple. And then he goes, but before you go down there, let me traumatize you for a hot minute. What follows is a 3.5-minute cutscene that explains why the Fused Shadows were sealed to begin with. Which is a good lore dump, except for some reason Nintendo decided the best way to get that across was by making this scene feel like a acid trip. Why do these characters have no eyes all of a sudden? Why do we need a very close-up shot of Link screaming with no eyes? Why are there multiple Ilias just endlessly falling into the void while doing that creepy laugh? Why does this cutscene just come out of nowhere? By the way, this sequence is never brought up or referenced again the entire game. Thanks, I hate it.
Well, first of all, the thing that makes this cutscene creepy is the fact that Ilia's in it, and she's just the worst in general. And then you add multiple Ilias, and then you give Ilia a knife. It's just, what were they thinking? And like you said, it comes out of nowhere. So I don't know why they decided to make this. Nintendo, why? I have some questions for you.
I think the part that really drives up the uncomfortableness factor for me is the fact that this cutscene is just shy of 4 minutes in length, which was a long time at the time, and something that I would consider an eternity by today's standards. This sequence really makes you sit there and absorb every little thing, and of course, the downpour of slowly spinning Ilias in the sky with some creepy laughter in the background. Seriously, who at Nintendo wrote this? Are they okay?
Simultaneously, both my favorite and least favorite part of this cutscene is when Link is running to the Triforce on top of a beautiful, grassy, flowery hill. 3 little shadow Links just sprout out of the ground like it's nothing. Just stare them down. It's beautiful. It's a piece of art.
Back in 2000, Nintendo created a viral marketing campaign for Majora's Mask. It was a collection of commercials, websites, and ads in Nintendo Power magazine. Even the Sci-Fi Channel website got involved. So let's start with the tamest part of the campaign, the commercials. They showed people from around the world reacting to the moon getting ready to crash down while a countdown of 72 hours remains goes on. But at least there was footage from Majora's Mask and a kid playing the game, so you know it wasn't real. Things started getting weird when Nintendo Power included an ad for RadioZelda.com. Exploring the site, you find entries beginning with August 21st, 2000, entitled A Parallel World is Discovered. The opening reads, Research Organization J. Ramoa, Joint Research of Alternate Mundile Occurrences in Astroplanology, has been conducting extra-dimensional experimentation since 1967. Bizarre as it may seem, scientists down in their Antarctic field lab have stumbled upon a universe parallel to our own beloved Earth. This is no joke. The next entry was good news and bad news. The good news is that someone with the proper genetic code might be able to interact with the parallel universe. The bad news, our world is connected to the parallel one on every level, and their moon is going to crash into their world on October 26, 2000. Now, if you unscramble the letters in J. Ramoa, you get Majora, and October 26 is when Majora's Mask came out. But when you're a kid, you don't always notice these things. Exploring later entries, there's a post about mysterious markings and mask sightings. My favorite is probably the one with a dog wearing Majora's Mask. Readers were encouraged to share any unexplained events in their area with Radio Zelda by emailing moonwatch@radiozelda.com. I kind of want to send them an email just to see if it's still active. Now, to prevent the apocalypse, Jay Ramoa needed to find the one. So Radio Zelda sent readers over to z-science.com, where you could do a DNA test to determine if you were the one. The DNA test consisted of holding your finger over your mouse, and they could read it from there because that's totally possible. So I tried it, and turns out I was the one, as was probably everyone else who took it. There were two aspects that made this campaign particularly unnerving. First off, it seemed to come from a credible source. The advertisement of Radio Zelda was in Nintendo Power, a legitimate publication, and there was an article and links to Radio Zelda and Z-Science on sci-fi.com. So this wasn't just some little fan site with a rotating Triforce GIF and a MIDI of Savage Garden playing in the background. It seemed like the real deal. Second has to do with the time period for when it came out. Having internet access was relatively new to a lot of people at the time. This was the year 2000. We had only had it for a couple years at that point in my family, and even then it was still dial-up, and technology was rapidly evolving, and it was shortly after the Y2K scare, and there was just a general fear of the unknown, which Nintendo absolutely played upon. Looking back, it was a really cute idea, and Nintendo went all out on their Majora's Mask marketing, and they did a phenomenal job linking everything. And that's right, I did just make a link pun, and I'm okay with that. As much as I'd like to see something like this now, I feel like it'd be a lot harder to pull off since there's so much more media to connect. But it'd definitely be fun to see.
I somehow missed out on this incredible marketing campaign as a child, which I'm both grateful for and very disappointed in. On the bright side, I'm not sure how 9-year-old me would have held up to Radio Zelda. I'm not so sure I could handle that. But there's nothing scarier than involving real life into your scary marketing campaign. So I can totally see why this goes so high up on our list.
I think what makes the Radio Zelda and Majora's Mask marketing so interesting is the fact that Nintendo did a really great job utilizing the tech that was available at the time. Keep in mind, the internet was brand new. There were a lot of people that kind of looked at the internet and thought a lot of the stuff there was legit. One of the reasons why films like The Blair Witch Project did so well was the fact that it marketed things as if it was a real event, using their website and using the internet to their advantage. Honestly, I wouldn't actually be surprised if Nintendo looked at the marketing for Blair Witch Project and went, that seemed to have worked. Let's do that here.
Radio Zelda is the only thing on our list that I actually had no prior knowledge of. And honestly, it could have stayed that way. Thanks, Amanda. I'm a huge fan of when games use their marketing resources to link certain events to real world in these meta-like ways, more commonly known as ARG these days. But the way Nintendo seemed to implement this idea in this case was enough to send chills down my spine. I like to think that I'm pretty tolerant with all things creepy and horror, but there's just something about these fake phone calls that were recorded for this campaign that really sell it all and make the whole thing feel real. Just listen to the desperation in this caller's delivery.
And with less than 6 hours left,
He's almost got it.
I think we should take some phone calls. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead. We're listening.
I just...
Believe in the boy.
Mom, I love you. And Dad, I miss you. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I hope that kid wins. I really do.
Alright, and for our last pick on the list here, we all decided to pick one thing together, and what we ended up coming up with was the Shadow Temple, but as a whole. Full stop, this place is the physical representation of dread, and to start things off, I'm gonna hand it over to Sam to go over the visuals of this place.
So the Shadow Temple, let's talk about visuals. In many ways, this feels a lot more like a dungeon than a temple. For a place hidden behind a graveyard, and called the Shadow Temple, of all things, we really shouldn't be surprised that it's among the scarier experiences in any Zelda game. Developers really felt fine with tossing Link in the darkest, dirtiest dungeon, and then added in additional frightening elements to take it up a notch. The temple's riddled with dark rooms and narrow hallways, and they all add together to make the player feel really uneasy even when not encountering enemies. But perhaps most notably, there are textures throughout the temple that show faces in the walls. Yes, faces. Scary, borderline demonic faces. The constant feeling of being watched definitely ups the scary factor, but if the murky, dark rooms aren't enough to creep you out, the blood might do it. But I'll let Alex tell you about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that gore real quick. Now, depending on what version of Ocarina you're playing, the amount of gore is gonna vary, but if you're playing the original 1.0 Gold Cart release, there's a lot more blood just in general, not just like the Ganondorf boss fight, just in general in the game. There's blood plastered onto some of the walls, and then you get whole rooms like this one where there are just giant puddles of blood around the wooden structure in the middle of the room with 2 chains hanging from the ceiling. The entrance into the bottom of the well is actually like this too, with even more blood on the walls and chains hanging from the ceiling. I'd like to remind everyone that this game was rated E, which means it was suitable for all ages. So why the hell does this look like something out of Hellraiser? Nintendo, what are you doing? And that rating makes even less sense when you consider that the first thing you fight in Shadow Temple is this eldritch horror of a thing! God, what is this?
From the oversized teeth to the blood streaks all over its body, Dead Hand is pure nightmare fuel. First and foremost, what exactly is Dead Hand? And whose blood is that? And why are there a bunch of arms coming up from the ground? Does he just grow them like SpongeBob? I have a lot of questions here. Dead Hand is disturbing on so many levels. First you get grabbed by one of its infinite arms, then it comes out of the ground and chomps down on you like a duck going after popcorn at Disney World. Now, it's bad enough that you have to deal with Dead Hand at the bottom of the well, but as you make your way through the Shadow Temple, there he is again. Or it's a different one. I'm honestly not sure if there are multiple Dead Hands or if the other one was just coming back for more. But really, with everything else going on in the Shadow Temple, from the blood on the walls to what looks like a torture device, the unsettling music, redeads and wall masters, apparently that wasn't scary enough for this E for Everyone game. So they added Dead Hand to the party. Thanks, Nintendo. I won't be sleeping tonight.
I think a large part of what sells the uneasiness and dread of the Shadow Temple is the music. There's a lot of little things you'll pick up in here if you sit down and listen to it really closely, but in a general sense, what makes this music so unnerving is the dissonance of it all. For those not familiar, dissonance is a musical phenomenon that basically describes anything that sounds off, or like it doesn't go together. That's not to say that there's no structure, but upon listening to this piece, you can definitely tell certain things were written in a way to make them sound uneasy. Most notably, the vocals, of which there are 2 parts. They sound dreadful as they are droning throughout just about the entirety of the song, giving them a sort of otherworldly feel. The voices themselves, they don't sound human, and if they are, they don't sound like a person would normally sing. It's uncanny, it's unsettling, and this was all surprisingly written by Koji Kondo, aka the same man who gave us a large majority of Mario's music over the years. Is he okay? Oh wow, talk about spooky. Anyway, thank you all so much for making it to the end of this video. Feel free to drop a like and subscribe to see more content like this in the future, and if you have any moments from Zelda that have scared or stuck with you over the years, feel free to let us know about it in the comments below. I am always up for the discussion. I also want to once again thank my friends NintendoFanGirl, Amanda, and Alex for joining me in creating this awesome list of creepy things, and make sure to follow them on their social medias as well, which I will link in the description. Anyway, that about does it for this video, so with all of that said, and without further ado, there's only one thing left to say before we take off, and that is, of course, as always, I'm alecandstuff, and I will see you all again real soon.